A common occurrence when I bring up the issue of inconsistencies and fallacies within the Keynesian theory of economics with a Keynesian is that the conversation tends to evolve to a conversation about Austrian economics. My idea is, and I could be wrong about this, is that it is too tough to defend Austrian economics with a straight face, so that its proponents try to find a way out, and Austrian economics is an easy escape to that conversation. The reality is that even if Austrian economics turned out to be wrong, or a cult, or a religion, or absurd, or whatever, that would not make Keynesian economics right. It's kind of like having a conversation about what is wrong with creationism, and its proponents constantly diverting the attention to evolution. Even if the theory of evolution was wrong, it would not prove that creationism is right at all. Probably the most common criticism of Austrian economics I get is that it is too arrogant because Austrians disregard empirical evidence. For that reason they call Austrian economics a religion sometimes. I wonder if they would call mathematics a religion, since you do not need empirical evidence to prove that 700 plus 300 is 1000. As a matter of fact, if empirical observation suggested otherwise, we would immediately be skeptical about the experiment or our understanding of the outcome of the experiment. We would never doubt that 700 plus 300 is 1000. And yet, we don't call mathematics a religion, and we don't think mathematics is arrogant because it does not need the empirical evidence. All sciences, both natural and social, need to have a framework which is it's a logical framework or a logical backbone. If the reasoning behind this backbone is correct, not even observational evidence can disprove it. For example, we all know that massive bodies have a gravitational pull that is relative to the mass of the object. Even if observation suggests otherwise, all objects abide by this same gravitational constant. When we look up to the sky, we will get the impression that all celestial bodies revolve around the Earth. If we put observation over logic in terms of validity, we would still believe that the Earth is the center of the universe. That's what it looks like when we look up to the sky, when we observe the sky. However, this scenario has a number of logical inconsistencies that we can't solve without creating new logical inconsistencies. So we know that our understanding of the evidence that we got through observation is something we just don't understand that evidence. Observation can never disprove logic. If you see an object go up in the air when we drop it, you do not doubt gravity, but immediately realize that there are other forces being applied to that object that make it rise. In this case, observation leads us to the logical conclusion that there are other forces acting upon the object. So why do we need observation in the natural sciences when we have logic? Well, everything that we know from logic we know is true or correct. But logic cannot tell us everything about everything. And that is why we use observation to gather evidence, which we can later rationally analyze to arrive at conclusions to expand our knowledge. What activity takes place inside the seas of Europa, Jupiter's moon? Or why do people get cancer? When will it rain? What is the speed of light? What specifically will be the most efficient way to allocate our nation's resources next year? Well, logic cannot answer any of these questions by itself. Most of these questions require observation and analysis, except for one. The one about resource allocation. The one that is of interest to economics. The truth is that we will never be able to answer that question, or any other question such as that, precisely because logic cannot give us an answer. Empirical evidence would only be considered anecdotal evidence and would never suffice to formulate an economics theory that would correctly predict the future. So why is it that empirical evidence is okay for natural sciences but not for social sciences? Well, there are basically two reasons for that, and both have to do with human action, humans making decisions. If no forces other than gravity is applied to a suspended object, the object will, without a question, fall. That object can't decide not to fall today, for example. If I feel like I'm not gonna go down to the ground when I'm dropped, for example. You can't imagine an object thinking that, because they can't. A photon can't decide, you know what, I feel like I'm gonna go a bit slower today. I'm gonna go at half the speed of light. That's gonna be my speed today. It's not gonna happen. If two atom nuclei collide and join each other in nuclear fusion, then two identical atomic nuclei under the same exact circumstances can't decide, yeah, you know what, I'm not gonna join together with this nucleus today. I kind of dislike this guy a little bit. It's not happening. That's social sciences, right? So objects do not make decisions. Humans, on the other hand, decide. We assign value to different potential scenarios. We act. We are unpredictable that way. We cannot assume that because empirical evidence suggests something about a person or a group of individuals, we can extrapolate that knowledge to the future. If I've had a Coke every day at 2 p.m. for the last 5 weeks, how certain are you that I will have a Coke today at 2 p.m.? Are you as certain of that as the fact that the Coke bottle will drop if I fall to the ground if I drop it? Would you be willing to bet the same amount of money for both occurrences? Humans act, and we are unpredictable, regardless of what observation may have suggested before. Sure, anecdotal evidence would seem to suggest that I will have a Coke today at 2 p.m., but that is really just anecdotal evidence. So that is the first reason. Humans are unpredictable. There's a second reason. Even if humans were predictable, which obviously we are not, we would have to understand all variables involving every single decision an individual makes. Will I have that Coke today at 2 p.m. if I have no money in my pockets? Will I have that Coke if I saw a documentary last night about the adverse effects of Coke in my body? Will I still have the Coke if it's very cold today, or if the store is where I usually buy it from is closed? Will I still have the Coke if my stomach aches? Will I buy the Coke to drink it if I have a meeting with someone at 2:30, which is 10 miles away? What if the meeting is 15 miles away? What if the meeting is 10 miles away and I'm driving a car? What if the meeting is 10 miles away but I'm using public transportation? What if the meeting is 10 miles away and I'm driving my car, which I just picked up from the shop because it was malfunctioning and I don't trust it the same way? I think you get the picture. Even if you were able to understand precisely how I make decisions, you will need to understand all potentially infinite variables that affect my decision of buying that Coke today at 2 o'clock or not. And that will be just for one individual and just for one specific occasion. Even further, even if you could understand exactly how I make decisions, and if you could somehow understand all variables involving that decision, would you be 100% certain that I would make exactly the same decision in two identical scenarios? Now you think about this. Which theory of economics seems more arrogant to you? One which understands its limitations and can only apply conclusions logically derived from axioms, or one that proposes to understand future decisions of whole societies according to models derived from empirical observation? Which would you say is closer to having religious dogmas? Does that mean that since empirical evidence can't be extrapolated to the future in the social sciences, then there is nothing of importance that economics can tell us? Of course not. There's plenty of information we can arrive to using deductive analysis that does not require observation, and that is what real economics is. That's what Austrian economics is. Austrian economists would love to use observation to expand science, but they are aware that they can't do that. They don't have the arrogance to believe that they can come up with their own models to accurately predict human action. No matter how much they would want to, or how much they want to believe in that, they just can't do it because Austrian economics is not a belief system. It's not a religion.